Greetings. This is Doc coming to you live and direct today from Black Facts Headquarters Central. All right. We got another good one today. We're going to finish one off that we started yesterday. Proverb for today is, he who begins a conversation does not foresee the end. And that describes the journey right here at Doc Ock at noon and 9. Because, we started this conversation back in February, but we had no idea where it was going to lead to. And it was just a very fortuitous event because we had already been planning on going live online. So by the pandemic coming in there, it just spurred us forward. And that's how we come to this proverb today. He who begins a conversation does not foresee the end. And that is a proverb from the area of Mauritania. Yeah, we've got a lot of Mauritanian proverbs we've used over the last few months. And it seems as though there's no end. I don't know where they keep coming from. It's a little bitty book, but I keep coming with more and more. So at any rate, we got an interesting poem to read today that relates to our topic as well. And the poem for today is one I'm going to need my glasses for probably. Let me see here. Oh, yeah. That's right. Okay. And it's another one from So Far So Good by Gil Scott-Heron. His book, one of his books of poetry. And it's called B Movie. There's such a thing as a B movie. I don't know if it's B for bad or B for not, as in it's not top shelf or what, but definitely not top shelf. B Movie, the poem. Come with us back to those inglorious days before heroes were zeros, before fair was square, when the cavalry came straight away and all American men were like Hemingway. To the days of the wondrous B Movie. The producer, underwritten by all the millionaires necessary, will be Casper, the defensive Weinberger. No more animated, a choice is available. The director will be Attila the Hague, running around declaring himself in charge and in control. The ultimate realization of inmates taken over at the asylum. The screenplay will be adapted from the book called Voodoo Economics by George Papadoc Bush. The theme song will be done by the Village People, that most military tune, Macho Man. A theme song for saber rattling and selling wars door to door. Remember, we're looking for the closest thing we can find to John Wayne. Cliches abound like kangaroos, courtesy of some spaced out Marlon Perkins, a Ray Gun contemporary. Cliches like tall in the saddle, like riding on or off into the sunset, like Gaddafi, get off my planet by sunset, more so than he died with his boots on. Marine tough, the man is Bogart tough, Cagney tough, and Hollywood tough, the man is John Wayne tough. The man is cheap steak tough and bonzo substantial. A Madison Avenue masterpiece, a miracle, a cotton candy politician, presto macho. It's a clear case of selective amnesia, remembering what we want to remember and forgetting what we choose to forget. All of a sudden, the man who called for a bloodbath on our college campuses is supposed to be Dudley goddamn do-right. You go give them liberals hell, Ronnie. That was the mandate to the new Captain Bligh on the new ship of fools, obviously based on chameleon performances of the past as a liberal Democrat, as the head of the Screen Actors Guild, when other celluloid saviors were cringing in terror from McCarthyism. Ron stood tall. It goes all the way back from Hollywood to hillbillies, from liberal to libelous, from bonzo to Birchite to born again. Civil rights, gay rights, women's rights, they're all wrong. Call in the cavalry to disrupt this perception of freedom gone wild. first one of them wants freedom, and then the whole damn world wants freedom. Nostalgia, that's what America wants. Make America great again. Let's go back to those good old days when we gave them hell, when the buck stopped somewhere and you could still buy something with it, to a time when movies were in black and white and so was everything else. Let us go back to the campaign trail before 6-gun Ron shot off his face and developed hoof in the mouth, before the free press went down before a full court press and were reluctant to view the menu because they knew that the only meal available was crow. Lon Chaney, our man of 1,000 faces, got nothing on Ron. Doug Henning will do the makeup. Special effects by Grecian Formula 16 and Crazy Glue. Transportation furnished by the David Rockefeller Remote Control Company. Their slogan is, why wait until 1984 when you can have what you want right now and then even get some more? You can panic now and avoid the rush. So much for the good news. As Wall Street goes, so goes the nation. And here's a look at the closing stocks. Racism is up. Human rights are down. Peace is shaky. War items are hot. The House claims all ties. Jobs are down. Money is scarce. And common sense is at a all-time low with heavy trading. Movies were looking better than ever. And now no one is looking because we're all starring in a B movie. And we would have rather had John Wayne. In fact, we would have done better with John Wayne. B movie. Seems like it applies to today, if you know what I mean. Even though that was a poem that was written in yesterday, things have not changed very much since then. All right, and now that goes right along with our story of the day, because we started off yesterday reading about Mary, Stagecoach Fields. So let's see, how far did we get yesterday? We got a little ways up the road here. Yeah, this is about where we left off at. All right, so let's see. Yeah, because we got about, let's see. Ooh, we got a long ways to go, so I better read fast. So here we go. Mary's wages were $50 a year, out of which she paid for all of her incidental expenses, such as her traveling bag, musical instruments, and medical prescriptions. Though she was dedicated to her work, Mary enjoyed relaxing with her pet dog and her music. She had her own banjo and harmonica. Come election day, Mary could be seen riding around town with wild abandon, smoking a cigar and campaigning vigorously for her candidate, because you know she couldn't vote, right? Sister Amadeus and Mary Fields became very fond of each other, and it must have saddened Mary then to see Sister Amadeus contemplating leaving the convent to go out west. In 1880, Bishop John T. Brondel of Vancouver, who was also in charge of the Montana Territory, because it wasn't a state yet, contacted the Ursuline sisters in Toledo. Jesuit missionaries in the West needed the Ursuline sisters' assistance to carry on the work they'd been doing there. For nearly 20 years, they'd been setting up relief centers and Indian missions for Native Americans. Bishop Brondel asked the Ursuline sisters to institute educational programs and to operate the Western missions. They were to open boarding schools for children of both white pioneers and Blackfoot Indians. 30 sisters answered the bishop's call for assistance. As missionaries, 6 were chosen, Sister Amadeus among them. Sister Amadeus was promoted to Mother Superior. And in 1884, the 6 nuns found themselves on the long journey westward. 1,600 miles all the way to the Montana Territory. The frontier had been inching ever westward, pushing bands of Indian tribes into other Indians' land. In addition to the bloody territorial disputes they'd been through, The displaced natives faced starvation as their buffalo were slaughtered by settlers. They were defenseless against foreign strains of diseases that they had no immunity to. By the way, it wasn't just that the settlers were slaughtering the buffalo to eat. It was also part of a war of extermination against the Native Americans. That's what we call that systemic racism. It wasn't just individuals. This was a systematic destruction of their food supply, their ability to clothe themselves, and their ability to create their own housing, because all of that is what they used the buffalo for. So those buffalo were more than just some beefalo. They were the all in all for the Native Americans. Additionally, alcoholism was a growing problem among the Indians. The sisters recognized the desperate plight of the Native Americans and were there to set up relief centers at the missions. They wished to bring Native peoples hope by bringing them closer to God. The Ursuline sisters did not realize just how primitive the conditions they were facing were when they pulled into Miles City, Montana. After their 3-day train trip, the temperature was 40 degrees below zero. The town, designated as a supply station for nearby Fort Cobb, boasted 65 saloons in one town, yet had little else in the way of civilized society. The nuns toiled incessantly to establish a much-needed boarding school for pioneer children. So those children would be living at that school, right? They also worked to establish a mission among the Cheyenne, Crow, Blackfoot, and Gros Ventre Assiniboine Indian reservations located in central and eastern Montana, an area 14 miles northwest of Cascade. And I looked at a map of Montana yesterday, and I didn't even see Cascade on the map. It's definitely not one of the larger towns in or cities in Montana, even today. A generous offer of financial assistance from the Jesuits, along with a farm, a few wagons, and cows, and $220 worth of provisions, enticed the sisters to establish an extension at St. Peter's Mission in late October 1884. By 1885, the Jesuit priests began turning St. Peter's Mission over to the Ursuline nuns. In April 1885, however, Mother Amadeus became ill with pneumonia. Months of sleeping on the cabin floor through cold winters and wet springs added to the stress of being undernourished and overworked. When word of her illness reached the Toledo convent, nothing could prevent the 53-year-old Mary Fields from accompanying Mother Stanislaus to Montana to nurse Mother Amadeus back to health. Once in Montana, Mary refused to leave Mother Amadeus while she was ill. Afterward, Mary insisted on staying on at St. Peter's Mission, and that was final. She too would brave the harsh Montana winters while living in log cabins as long as she could be near her beloved friend again. For 8 years, Mary assisted with the building of the Ursuline Sisters Stone Convent, nestled in the 19 miles from the town of Cascade, formerly called Dodge. Mary, who answered to no one, insisted on earning her keep. She did much of the hard labor herself, hauling, building materials of stone and lumber from the wagon to the site. Hard work was no stranger to Mary Fields, and she was more than willing to tackle any task. Yet she was quick to get her ire up and readily took on any of the hired hands if provoked. Besides construction of the mission's 3 stone buildings and the wooden church, her jobs included doing the laundry, tending the garden, raising chickens, handling any odd jobs, and preparing the chapel altar for Mass. Mary also drove the freight wagon through all kinds of adverse weather, faithfully delivering food and supplies to the mission. While Mary preferred to settle her arguments with her fist, it was well known that she carried a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson pistol under her apron for protection when she drove that freight wagon. This single action firearm could be easily stashed and was perfect for close work. It was said that Mary couldn't miss a thing within 50 paces. Reliable as she was, she saw her deliveries through and would take on anyone who dared to prevent her from doing so. Mary was not easily intimidated, and her temper got her into many altercations, verbal and physical. The combination of her coarse language, affinity for liquor and cigars, and explosive disposition earned her a reputation as the terror of the countryside. She once gave a pelting of rocks to a man who'd insulted her verbally. Another altercation in 1894 with a hired hand led to a duel in which Mary's bullet came close enough to the offender that he learned not to mess with her ever again. Reports of such incidents reached Bishop Rondell's ears, which concerned him, for it did not put the mission in a favorable light. Of course, he didn't think about this till after Mary had already built the daggone mission. When news of the shootout reached him in Helena, he decided he'd heard enough. The Native American girls were being taught 19th century Victorian customs and manners so as to fit into fine society. There was no place for a showdown at a mission school. The bishop insisted that Mary Fields be directed to leave the mission permanently, and not even Mary herself could dissuade him. After nearly 10 years of unswerving devotion to the Ursuline nuns, Mary packed her bags. To the sisters' great dismay, this directive not only separated Mary from them, but estranged her from the church as well. Mother Amadeus saw to it that Mary Fields was not far away, though. She was set up in the restaurant business in nearby Cascade. At age 62, Mary Fields began her brief career as a restaurateur. Underneath her rough exterior, her heart was as big as the Montana Territory. She ended up giving away far too many meals, especially, where was that at? Oh, shucks, I lost it. Oh, to poor local sheep herders. Her continual benevolence toward those who were hungry and the credit she extended to her non-paying customers were, of course, admirable, but her business failed. Refusing food to no one, she went broke not once, but twice. Perhaps Mother Amadeus thought it best to concentrate on Mary's skills to find her employment. At 64 years old, Mary still feared no one. She was aggressive and could expertly handle 2 teams of horses better than any man around. Therefore, the Mother Superior managed to secure a job for which Mary was well qualified, driver for the U.S. Mail. In fact, Mary's route was between Cascade and St. Peter's Mission, and this enabled her to see her friend and the other sisters on a regular basis. So now, we're going to have to leave off there, unfortunately. I thought I'd be able to get this done in 2 sessions, but it looks like it's going to require 1 more session, and we'll be able to knock out the story of Mary Stagecoach Fields, who, as you can see, has ties to the West in more ways than one, because she not only had ties out there in Montana as well as Tennessee, but she also had ties right here in the great state of Ohio, up in Toledo, Ohio. So Mary Stagecoach Fields. We'll finish off that story tomorrow. In the meanwhile, we hope you leave with a smile and can do it in a whole lot of style. If you're looking to make a donation to our cause, please do so at PayPal by just going ahead and sending money to KKhemet, KKHEMET @gmail.com. Just send it straight away, not as a payment, but just as a money to a friend, if you would. We'd really appreciate that. All the monies, as you already know, go into us purchasing materials like these books here that we've been purchasing for the last 10 years or more to be able to tell all these wonderful stories, because at this very moment, we're still purchasing more books for our upcoming month of October, where we will be featuring the explorers of the West. Okay, actually just explorers. So they're not necessarily of the West, but explorers, African explorers in general. Who are they? Where were they? What did they do? Okay, so we'll get into that on next month. In the meanwhile, do it with style for quite a while. We're going to do the same, and we promise not to blame anybody else. We'll see you tonight. We'll be right back here at 9 o'clock, because this is Doc Ock at noon and 9, signing off.